never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Another beautiful day for an interview, and I've got Nita Sweeney with me. Nita Sweeney, I've been looking very much forward to this interview because this woman is a powerhouse. This woman went from suicidal couch potato to ultra marathoner. And what do? Well, you transform and you actually realize this is really cool what I just did. So you write books and you are coming out, you become vulnerable and share the honest truth about your past and the way you are now transforming. So Nita is exactly on the same path as I am. We want to make this world a better place by sharing our stories. And therefore, I'm so glad to have her here on my show. Nita, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. It's great stuff you're doing. Great stuff you're putting out in the world.
Oh, thank you. And the same other way around. Oh, Nita, I mean, and it's so hard. Where to start? Let's go back to your childhood. Who did you want to be? What did you want to be when you were a little girl?
Oh, I wanted to train horses.
Oh, excellent.
That's because that's what my brother did. I was actually I rode a little bit, but I was mostly afraid of horses. But yeah, and then I thought I wanted to be a school teacher, and then I thought I wanted to be a musician. I thought I wanted to be in an orchestra, all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, I always read. I was a voracious reader from a very young age, and so ultimately, I wanted to have a book with my name on the cover. And now I do. It's kind of crazy.
Well, exactly. And a lot of people say that, oh, I want to write a book, and they never do. So the sheer fact that you have done that not only once, but twice, but 3 times, it gives us already a bit of an idea that you're a woman, once you put your mind to it, then that you make things happen. And so you're an action woman, so to speak. And that is beautiful. But I'm sure that this was not the real whole story. We are not just turning into these action people that we too are now. Unfortunately, there is the night of the dark soul in the film parlor, or there is the darkness, unfortunately, in our life that makes us live a life that is probably not so nice. Sometimes we want to escape that reality with whatever it is that is your poison, whether that be alcohol, which was mine, or behaviors such as gambling or drugs. Tell us a little bit about your past. What led you to your transformation?
Well, I've always had kind of the melancholy spirit. And I realize now that it was the aptitude for depression, or the, kind of the tendency toward depressive episodes. My mother, probably bipolar, undiagnosed. My father, just sort of one of these people that was kind of like that all the time. And they were both really high achievers, but also had their own issues. So they both drank a lot, and there was a lot of alcohol in my family. And, so I started drinking pretty young myself. And, that's a big part of the journey for me. It's been a long time since I've had a drink. I don't drink now. But yeah, I wrecked cars. I got in fistfights. I did all kinds of stuff when I was much, much younger. And, I'm not proud of that, but I think about it now, and I just feel like such a completely different person. And I think what the transformation, you hear these stories sometimes of people who transform and they end up in jail, or they, I don't know, just all kinds of horrible things happen. Mine was much more of an internal journey, much more of a dissatisfaction and a horrible sadness within myself. And so I was a partner in a law firm. I actually am, I talked about my parents being achievers. I'm a kind of a high achiever too. So I practiced law for about 10 years, but it was, in the last couple of years, was just horrible. Just this awful spiral of dreading going to work, all those, all that thing. Even though I did pretty well, on the outside, things looked good. You know how that is. But on the inside, I was really suffering, and I wasn't getting the kind of help I needed. I wound up coming really close to suicide, and I wound up, in a mental hospital. And that's where I really started getting the help I needed, where I got therapy. And I had quit drinking by then too. That's what's always interesting is I had thought that drinking was the only problem. So I had quit that, was able to do that. But yeah, the moods were so bad. And that's been many, many years ago that I was hospitalized, got therapy, been on and off medications, and started writing, which was kind of the thing that was underneath everything. Started writing, but was not successful. Was not able to. I had have some pretty good publication credits, but was not able to publish a book, which was what I really wanted. I wanted a outside entity to publish my book, to get that kind of gold star. And yeah, so I mean, I think.
What did you write? What was that writing more escapism? Was it, for example, beautiful stories, or was it writing about you?
Yeah, my writing's always been mostly about my life and also processing emotions, because I have just a real aptitude for kind of the emotional world. And so I would write about my feelings and my thoughts about the people around me and my family and my job and our dog and all kinds of things like that. But in fact, the publications, my first published story was in Dog World magazine, and it was about how they save dogs' lives by putting them on Ritalin. There are actually hyperactive dogs, attention deficit kind of hyperactivity dogs, and they become aggressive, and without medication, they end up being vicious. But they put them on Ritalin and they calm down. So when I learned that, it was just one of those moments. I was kind of joking with my therapist, because my veterinarian. I was joking with my veterinarian that maybe my dog needed an antidepressant, and he said, "Well, actually, I think she needs Ritalin." And we didn't put her on Ritalin; she was not that far gone. Yeah. But I said, they do that, and so I started researching it, and that was my first published article, was in Dog World magazine. And then I was in Dog Fancy, and those were my first publications. Were in American national magazines about dogs.
Priceless.
So yeah, and that's been a long time ago. Those are, I don't know if you probably can find them somewhere, but and then I wrote some essays about different things. But I always wanted a book. I wanted that big project, and I was always working on a book of some kind or another. But
why did you want that?
I don't even know. I think it's I have a thing about having the complete set of things. And a book is, now, if it were a series, it wouldn't be a complete set, but a book is a set. It's like a thing. So like with a magazine article, you're just one article in the magazine, and not dissing that at all. That's really hard work, and people, journalists are amazing. But there was something about the book that it was the permanence of it, and that's where I lived. I lived in books. I didn't live in magazines as much. So it was kind of my world, but yeah.
Oh, beautiful. It is, with hindsight, I mean, you were already a high achiever. When you achieved things, for example, when you became a lawyer, this would have been a hard slog to get there. Did you celebrate that as an achievement? Or did you actually just say, oh, tick, no, that's fine. Okay, next. What's next?
Yeah, no, I did, but law school was so hard. I mean, it was just so difficult. I study personality types, and my personality type of attorneys, there are fewer than maybe 1% of attorneys that are my personality type.
Right.
And I didn't know that until long after I was practicing. I was actually practicing when I found that out. But I remember the first day in contract, Greg Travaglio's contract class at the Ohio State University, sitting there and thinking, these people are talking a language I do not understand. I mean, I've read the cases. I read all the same cases they did. I have an excellent undergraduate education, and I have no idea what they're talking about. And then for the next 3 years, I just struggled to try to keep up, to try to do the work, and I also, I had chronic depression. So I was kind of going in and out of those, and I was drinking at the time, which is not helpful. But so I had them when I graduated from law school. I asked my family, instead of having, a normal cake, the cake said, "Thank God it's over."
Fair enough.
And then I went on to practice for 10 more years after that. So
the reason I'm asking that is one of my core beliefs, which is very screwed up, is that I'm a failure. I'm a failure. And this is something I need a bloody chisel and go through my brain and get that out. But it's still deep down. God knows where it comes from, but it's there. And it doesn't matter what I achieve. I will always think I'm a failure. And
I have a comment about that, if you're interested.
Shoot.
I have been working with a writing coach. I work always with professionals. I never feel like I'm there, because I too, we call that imposter syndrome. That feeling that I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, I'm not, this is not enough, it'll never be enough. And yeah, I definitely had that. I mean, in some ways, the law degree, and then passing the bar exam, and then practicing law, and then becoming partner, those were all little things on a list I checked off. It's like on to the next, on to the next, on to that. But this one teacher I work with, Becca Syme is her name, and she insists that imposters don't get imposter syndrome. That the people who get imposter syndrome are not imposters. They are people who are concerned with quality. And there are people who judge themselves harshly and shouldn't, but they do. And so she has T-shirts, I think, and mugs that say imposters don't get imposter syndrome, because her idea is that we have this kind of a radar for quality, and that we're just wanting to be as good as we can be at whatever we're doing. And we also probably have some internal wiring that makes it easier for us to see all that and to judge all that and to compare ourselves. But that has been so helpful to me, because I feel like a fraud and a fake every single day, at least a couple times a day. And I just remember, oh, that's right. Imposters don't get imposter syndrome. It still makes me feel, I still feel the same way, but yeah.
How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? You just made my day. I had not come across that.
Attribute Becca Syme, because that's
unbelievable.
Make sure you put her in the links.
But guys, that is so important. That is so important. Here we are. I make myself vulnerable by being honest about my story. What happens? Someone else is doing the same thing. In this case, Nita. And what happens? We both grow. We both change irreversibly, and we grow for the better. So talk about post-traumatic growth. Talk about post, I don't know, whatever labels you want to give it. I am growing every day, and that is the life I love. Sometimes I win, sometimes I learn, those kind of things. That is what makes a good day. Anita, you just made my day. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. I just share. Yeah, I just feel like I almost like like a social worker or something. I gather these resources, and then I share them with other people through kind of my Nita filter, the way I see the world. And that's what you're doing. You're gathering with the people you interview, the other things you do, you gather that information, and then you share them with other people. So, but it's always filtered through our individual personality and our experiences. And what you said about trauma, I think that there's so many levels to trauma, and I keep thinking I should just be over it. That this shouldn't affect me. I should be. Are we done yet? Can I like graduate finally? Yeah, I don't think we do that until the end.
Nice try.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is the trauma happens in layers. And healing happens in layers. It's the old onion principle. Right. And it is amazing. And sometimes we're not ready to heal from a certain trauma. So you can think, hey, I've done it now. And yeah, bullshit. I've been there many times. Nice try. And then, but it's more the never-ending journey. And it is a meandering path where you can't see much ahead. You see maybe a little bit and you move towards what you can see. And then suddenly there's a curve and there's a detour. And often enough, it's a very beautiful detour that you didn't expect. But the detour might suddenly get very steep and it makes you sweat and it's going to be hard work. That is really what life has been for me. But the difference between the first 45 years and the second 45 years will be that I numbed myself, rightly or wrongly, for a very long time. I was a workaholic, I was an alcoholic, and there are a few other holics probably somewhere there, but these were the two main ones. And it's only now, in the last 8 years, that I begin to cherish the privilege of living intentional and being here in the moment. But that is something I had to learn, and I would have never learned that had I not gone through the darkness. And I think that is the same with you. So here you were, lawyer, out there, but feeling like being in the wrong body. Because there you were. I can see where you're coming from. You need to be a certain type of person to be a lawyer. And if you're an empath and if you're very in tune with your emotions, that's probably not very easy.
Well, the conflict was the problem. It was just that I just hate conflict, which it's ridiculous now that I think about it. Why would you ever go? I mean, that's the whole point of law.
So why did you go into law then?
Because I could write and I was smart and I didn't know what else to do. And I was very interested. I took all these political science classes. I interned for the prosecutor's office. And some of my friends had sort of taken that same path. And I applied and I got into, my top school probably would have been Harvard, but I got into Ohio State, which is really hard to get into. And so nice. I thought, why not?
There you are. Well, when did you do your law exam?
Oh, the 80s. So it would have been 1985.
Yeah, there you go. So that means that was still a time when alcohol was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. And certainly in hard driving professions, such as law, such as other marketing, etc., there would have been, it would have been a very wet environment. So you're forgiven to, of course, fall back onto that. Was alcohol a friend to you?
Oh, for a while. It's like it worked until it didn't.
Correct. Exactly.
It's a spirits. It's a sedative. It's it makes you feel less inhibited because it depresses the inhibitions, but then ultimately it is a depressant. So it's
correct. Who was the Nita who came out after 2 classes of wine or whatever your post was?
She was either a very deep thinker or she was fighting people. Mostly I went with more within myself, but I was a little bit more outgoing. I tend to be pretty introverted, not socially. I'm not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of public speaking or anything like that, but I need a lot of alone time. And so when I drank, I was more vivacious and more loquacious, all those more outgoing, and just not as afraid, which was often stupid.
Did you were saying you were in tune with your emotions. Was that really true? I mean, could you cry, or did it need actually the encouragement of the alcohol for you to?
No, I could. Yeah, no, I probably cried less when I drank.
Oh, interesting.
It was almost like the opposite. It was almost like it filtered everything. Everything was sort of through a veil instead of it all coming at me so powerfully all the time. It filtered the intent, because I am so highly sensitive that everything was just all sensations, and especially people's emotions. You know, the little tiny raised eyebrow. I see the 1/32 of an inch corner of your eyebrow go up and down that most people don't even notice. And so that kind of stuff was tempered a little bit, which made me more brave, because I wasn't as hypervigilant when I drank. It's funny because some people get more paranoid, some people get more like that. I was sort of the opposite.
I always had the masks up, and I needed the alcohol to let that come out. So when I was completely tired after a 96-hour work weekend, I would have a day off, and I would pour myself typically red wine. Red wine did the trick, and Les Miserables, the soundtrack of Les Miserables. And I would suddenly bawl my eyes out, snot, tears. That was the only time when I could release those things. So we two had opposite reactions with our alcohol. And it just shows that every man, every woman's journey will be different, and with different core beliefs, sometimes same core beliefs, but different reactions, what drugs or alcohol or behaviors actually do to us. But it's so common that I hear that it was a friend until it was no longer. And there you go. How long or when did you realize that alcohol was not really something that was helping you?
It was in the early 90s. So it's been a long time, about 30 years ago. I had, my mother had gotten sober. She quit drinking.
Oh, wow.
And some other family members, she died sober. She's been gone a long time. And that changes a family. That, family is kind of like a mobile, one of those hanging mobiles. And it has this balance. And then when one piece, it suddenly has to go like this. And so that changed things. And it sort of a wake-up call. And some other family members got sober. And I ended up going into a program for people whose family members are alcoholics or who are recovering, and learned a lot there. But in that process, eventually had to look at myself and my own drinking. And that's how I ended up getting, finally getting to a place where I realized this is not working. And I had tried to quit a number of times. I'd played kind of these games and, not successfully, very unsuccessfully. And so I don't know, it's sort of it's the kind of thing where I'm not totally sure a lot of people really know what finally flipped the switch. It's just, you just had enough. I just had enough.
Beautiful.
It was just, that was it. So, so it's been a long time, but, and not drinking helps a lot. But I still have, I always think of it as sort of two diseases, where I have the alcoholism, and then I also have the chronic depression. I'm bipolar 2, or that's a category, whatever it is. I have the mood swings of that. I'm not ever sure about the categories, how great that is. But it was helpful to me because I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on when I had all these, I had quit drinking and thought that was the fix, but there were other things going on. So that's actually feels like a much longer story, was the mental health challenges for me.
And often enough, you have to stop with the addiction first before you then can explore actually the mental health, because you look at it all through the veil of alcohol or the haze of whatever drug you're taking. And it's only when you stop actually hiding and when you take ownership and actually really give yourself the opportunity to explore your own emotions and what is really truly happening within you. Only then can you actually do that work. I don't know how many self-help books I read or Tony Robbins courses I started, typically with a glass of wine in my hand and not taking action. Bloody hell. So I was not ready for the change until I got clean and sober in my head.
That's one thing. I have heard of some people who just stop drinking and they're fine because they don't have the other. I mean, they do some emotional work, they do, other stuff, but they don't need medication. They might do a little therapy, but they get okay pretty quickly. And it was almost like I got I got a better at first and then almost worse because I no longer had the alcohol to medicate the, I don't know whether, I'm not a doctor. You are. I'm a lawyer and a writer, all that stuff. But I don't know which came first, the biochemical, predisposition to addiction or the mental health issues. But I think there's just a lot of both going on, a lot of weaving in it all. So yeah. But yeah, I know that I have worked with people who have tried to not stop drinking, but just do therapy or take medication and not stop drinking it.
So how did that end?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. How's that? What is that? How's that work?
That's right.
Well, Phil.
That's right. If you're a hangover, do you really want to go for a 10K run? Probably not. Okay. Yeah. So again, that is one example.
Plenty of hungover people, and it's not always fun. It's not fun for the sober people, let's say.
Oh goodness, you're quite right. But sometimes whatever the journey takes for you to make changes, if it is going on a run and puking your guts out on the side, and then realizing actually now this bloody alcohol is not good for me. Well, maybe that is what it takes for some people, whatever it is. So I'm
no judgment from me.
Exactly.
Because we each have to. I just am grateful when somebody finally gets it, where they finally start to do the work. Because we, people die of this stuff. It's not It's easy for me to kind of laugh sometimes and think about the good old days, but people die of this. I mean, they die of alcoholism, they die of mental health issues, they die, they kill other people, whether accidentally, so it's it's really a big deal.
Oh dear. So here you were, Nita, in a profession that was really not suiting you, and you had stopped drinking. Kudos to you. But so you're sober. Now what? How did the story continue?
Well, that's where the depression started getting really bad, was because I didn't have that buffer. And the other thing I had done at the same time was I had started meditating. So very shortly after I got sober, I started, I was introduced to meditation by a man who's now my husband. And that really wakes you up too, because you sit with these uncomfortable emotions. And so anything that I had done to kid myself into thinking I could continue to practice law, at least in the way I was, it was gone. It was, kind of not ripped from me, but it was gone. And so I couldn't hide from that reality. I mean, it had been the reality for a long time. But yeah, so that's actually when I ended up being hospitalized, is because I couldn't imagine. It was another jumping off place. I couldn't imagine being an attorney, and I couldn't imagine not being an attorney. It was very similar to what happens when I can't imagine drinking, I can't imagine not drinking. Very similar, only actually much more devastating. And
this is your livelihood. This is your livelihood.
It is. It's my livelihood, and it's my identity.
Oh, you were to take the words out of my mouth, girl. That's right. I was about to say, how did you introduce yourself? I'm Stephan Neff. I'm a pain physician. That was me. And they said, no. Who are you? I just told you I'm a pain physician. So you were the attorney. Right.
So that was, and not only was I an attorney, I was a partner in a boutique law firm. I mean, it was a very, this very small law firm. So, some days I still struggle with that a little bit. But that's what happened, is that I ended up taking a leave of absence from work, and with no solution for how to, I was in therapy by then, and I was on medication by then. But the other thing that happens is sometimes, especially with the antidepressants, you start getting your energy back before your mood increases. And so I started having enough mental energy to create a plan to end my life before I no longer wanted to end my life. And that was that very dangerous intersection. And so so I'm, I had the plan. I planned to carry it out, and I missed a therapy appointment. I mean, I don't even, sometimes I don't even like to think about it because I think I would be dead, but I was supposed to go to therapy that morning when I was planning on, killing myself. And they called me when I didn't show up, which I'm not sure they always do that, but they called me pretty quickly. And for some reason, I answered the phone. And so I don't know if the reception heard what was in my voice or whatever, but she said, "Why don't you just come on in? Just come in now. We'll figure out something." And I got in there, and I don't know if I don't. It's been a long time ago, but long story short, they figured out pretty quickly that the Nita who had been showing up to appointments before then was partly a facade, because I was still kind of in my pajamas, and I hadn't had a chance to put that was back where I still wore makeup. But I hadn't had a chance to kind of pull myself together the way I usually did to present to the therapist. And so they said, we need you to call your husband, because you're not leaving here on your own. We can either call an ambulance, or he can take you in, but we want you to go to the hospital because we don't think you're safe. And they were right. I was a bit stunned, and a bit once I got there and continued to talk to them, I thought, you came this close to no longer being here, this close, a phone call away. So yeah, that's what happened. It just felt my identity, my income, my everything. But not everything, because I had this amazing husband. We had 2 wonderful dogs, 2 great stepsons. I have my sister, my brother. My parents were still living, so I had a lot of support, but I couldn't figure out that one piece. And so yeah, I'm just so grateful that I have, because so many people, they can't afford help here. And I live in the United States, and there's the whole financial situation with insurance, and oh my gosh, it's probably not even a road we want to go down. But yeah, I was a partner in a law firm, so I had this amazing health insurance and ability to access care that a lot of people don't have, and it saved my life.
Wow. What can you say to that? Because these are the fundamental moments in someone's life. Were you relieved when you were admitted? Was there a sense of...
No, it didn't, because what happened was I could not figure out. It took, I ended up having to go on disability, and I struggled with that so much. I just fought that. But I couldn't imagine working, and I was not capable, I wasn't capable of it. And yet I couldn't imagine not doing that. And so that struggle continued for really a couple of years while I was in and out of therapy, in groups, in partial hospital, in and out of partial hospitalization. It was really a struggle. The late 90s, the early to late 90s were just really tough for me. And I eventually just had to accept that that's what I was going to have to do. And that's when things started to come together, when I realized that you have that safety net for a reason. That's what that safety net is for. It's not that you're a slacker, which is what my voice. Did we talk about imposters? It seems like I'm hearing echo here. Somebody but that's the message I got, was that you're a slacker if you take this money, if you
Excellent.
Excellent. And so so that was a real challenge. And then that's when I started to get healing. And then I was on and off different medications, and I really spent the next 20 years, I would say, doing okay, managing, doing all right. But it wasn't until I found an exercise, a movement form, let's call it, not even exercise, that I could stick with, that brought me joy, that was a missing piece for me. And now I feel I never want to say, oh, this is what you have to do, or what I do is for everybody, or anything like that. But I needed the meditation. I needed the medication and therapy. So I needed the professional help. But on the not so professional side, I needed to meditate regularly. That's my thing. I need to do some kind of writing practice, whether it's writing practice, journaling kinds of thing, free writing, or whether it's actually working on books. But it has to be that kind of processing in writing with my brain. And I need movement. I need physical activity that gives me those happy brain chemicals. And once I got those, that's when things really started to change. All of that other stuff, very important part of my history, but feels a bit like ancient history. And it was the couch potato to 5K was probably the shift. And I probably could have stuck with 5K, but did we mention the whole achiever thing? I probably could still be running 5Ks and be just fine.
Yes.
I could be probably walking quickly around the block and be just fine. But did I mention the achiever thing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The whole gold star thing?
Excellent. And that's so beautiful, though. I mean, there's this. Come on, there are far worse addictions, and there are far worse things that you could do.
Just joking about it, but it is medicine for me.
And let's be clear about that. There is the one aspect, which is that movement is inherently good for you. No two ways around it. It gives you such a beautiful appreciation, especially movement outside. In nature, there's so much to be said about that. But you're right, it doesn't actually take so much to get that happening. But then when you actually delve deeper into exercise and spend longer time doing exercise, other things happen. And you were already saying the meditation, you were already saying the mindfulness that has played a role in your life. Now, I can't imagine anything more boring than running 10Ks, 20Ks, 30Ks. And I guess that's the reason I stopped at 10Ks, even at my best times when I was in university. Every night or every other night I went running. But after 10Ks, I got bored out of my brains. But here you have actually managed to combine the mindfulness / meditation with running. Tell us a bit about that, because the endurance races that you're doing, or the endurance training that you're doing, that is not just once around the block, is it?
No, it's 6 times around a 5-mile loop with a little 1.5 miles out and 1.5 miles back.
Exactly.
I kind of joke, and this might be a personality quirk, but I do have a bit of an infinite capacity for boredom. And that could be from years being the youngest child by many, many years. So my brother and sister are much older. So I spent a lot of time alone, and we lived on a 50-acre farm, and my parents weren't around a lot. So it was like me and the dogs, me and the horses, me and the cats. So I spent a lot of time alone. I'm used to that. But what I very quickly, I don't know exactly how long, after I did start running, I realized that I could meditate while I was running. And that changed a lot of it, because I have a focus. I have something to come back to. I have a little task to keep my mind busy. And some people listen to music. That's great. I had a couple of close calls with cars, and so I'm kind of no, I'll just listen to nature kind of person. But yeah, so picking a color, picking a sound. In the spring, picking like the scent of lilacs. Where I live in Central Ohio, United States, and the spring here, the trees and the flowers just go crazy, and they can be very fragrant. So picking that on a day that I know that's going to happen, choosing a body sensation. So the sensation of my feet hitting the ground, the maybe the feeling of the crown of my head just sort of being in space and time, moving along. Different things like that. Noticing if I'm kind of upright or if I'm slouched over, just noticing all that and the awareness of that. It becomes interesting to me. And then, of course, my mind wanders. And next thing I know, I'm thinking about something else. And so I just gently bring it back to whatever I've chosen for whatever period of time I've chosen, not necessarily the whole period I'm running, but yeah, it's become a way to combat boredom, because yeah, I mean, it can get really boring. It just can. But then again, what does boredom feel like? Where do I feel boredom in my body? What are the thoughts and body sensations that arise when I'm bored? What is boredom? So that becomes, everything is grist for the mill. Everything becomes the object of meditation.
Nice. How long does your 32-mile run last?
Let's see, the first year I think it was 10 hours and the second year was 9. So
Yeah.
a long time, because I'm slow and I don't care.
Mhm.
I make no apologies for being slow.
That's my point. First of all, wow, what an achievement. I take my hat off. This is wow. Well done, you. But I'm intrigued about your ability to deal with the mental side of long distance running. I had not considered it in the way of meditation. Personally, I mean, it's intriguing what you said with your 2 close calls, listening to music. That's, I think, really, really important for everyone to who wants to now restart their life. Often enough, you get sober and now you think, okay, who am I? And you've forgotten. Maybe you never found out. So now you start with something new, and maybe you go into the gym, and then what typically happens is you haven't moved your body for 20 years, and now you go all out and you think, yeah, I can do that, free weights, yeah. And then I see you for shoulder surgery several weeks later. So there's one typical outcome. The other outcome is, of course, with the running. We try to go out there, and I see enough runners going with earphones, and yeah, there is a very real risk. For me, with my PTSD, to go running, one of the traumas I had in my life is that I did some nasty, nasty ankle trauma when I was running. And I ended up sort of crawling back 3Ks, and it wasn't pretty. So I'm acutely aware that I don't want my mind to drift, because my ankles do roll from now and then, and it is what it is. So therefore, guys, so just take that as a warning. Don't just say, oh, great, I let my mind wander. Please look at where you're walking, what you're walking on. Maybe if you want to explore something like that, don't go cross-country running or on some wooden paths, which is typical for New Zealand here. There are routes everywhere. So guys, find a track. That is a track. Then go for it, okay? So just a little warning there that you don't meet me.
Right. No, that's one of the reasons I think using mindfulness or some kind of attention focused meditation while you exercise is so important, because if you are present to where you are, then you're not going to trip over those roots. But but it's a practice. You're not going to be able to, let's say you're going to go run a mile on a very rooty trail that has all kinds of things you could trip over. Chances are you don't have the focus to do that attention thing I'm talking about right away. So that's why we practice. We practice in short intervals. Yeah. We practice in settings that don't matter. We practice in safe settings. That's why, sitting practice is helpful, because you're just sitting down. You're probably not, I mean, if you fell asleep, you might fall over and injure yourself. But if you're sitting on a chair, you might slip out of the chair or something like that. Yeah. But chances are you aren't going to physically injure yourself. And also, we use breath meditation because everybody breathes. So you can't say, oh, I don't have that. I don't see that. I don't smell that. I don't, whatever. Everybody breathes. So yeah, but it's about bringing yourself back to the present. And it's not always comfortable at first. We're used to living distracted. I mean, I've been meditating for 30 years, and I still find myself, scrolling on social media for an hour and go, where'd that hour go? I don't know. What happened? So it's a thing that you have to have the interest for it. Yeah. And then you have to practice it. And the boredom one, the one that I always suggest is if you're in a grocery line or a store line and you feel bored waiting, you feel a sense of impatience, maybe waiting, instead of taking out your phone and scrolling or texting somebody, just stand there and be bored for a minute. Be impatient for a minute, just a few seconds. Notice what impatience and boredom feels like. And then, bring out your phone, whatever. But because you're practicing a skill set, just like it's like lifting weights.
Oh, nice.
You're just not going to be able to do it out the gate.
Nice.
And so people think, oh, well, I can't do this because I just, well, yeah, of course you can't do it. You couldn't walk when you were, when you were a baby either. But you practice in situations that don't matter so that some other time when it does matter, you have the skill set for it.
Oh, I love that. I love that because that very much is in tune with my own experience in rehab, where I had to learn about my own emotions. And that's the dreaded 10 o'clock in the morning feelings session, which typically, for those of you who don't know what it is, you're sitting in a circle, no in the sunglasses, no hat, nothing in your hands. So you're not allowed to distract yourself. And then for an hour, you talk. And typically the way it starts with is, good morning, everyone. And then the bloody guy who runs the session keeps his mouth shut and doesn't say a word. You look up there and you look around. And then someone says something and someone else says something. And sometimes it's joy, sometimes tears, anger. Things come out and you're experiencing them. And you think, what the hell is that? Oh, I want a drink. My God, that's anger. Oh, no, I need to drink. And it's those kind of things. So to actually learn about your emotions, to experience them as the waves of neurochemicals that they are, that is such a powerful insight. Your emotional awareness, your emotional, how do you call that? Literacy, I guess.
That's a good way. Yeah, literacy. I like that.
It is ultimately, we don't know our emotions until you actually start intentionally exploring them and see where they come from, what has triggered them, how do they feel, and only then do you step into that position where you become free of them, where you realize, okay, the neurochemicals are coming, but you realize that you have got a choice in how you respond to them. And that is exactly what you have just said. Use that time that was given to you as a gift. Right now, you have to stop because you're standing in that bloody queue. Right now, you have to stop. Yeah, you can choose what you do with that time. And it might be that you do that one text that you have been procrastinating about. Cool, that's good. But you're using it intentionally in a positive way. Or you could actually meditate or, doing something like that. I love that. I did not consider things like the meditation, because when I meditate, my mind goes blank, and whilst my mind maybe goes somewhere, it gently comes back to nothingness. Therefore, automatically, I excluded that from anything outside, where my PTSD hypervigilance wants to be ready for everything. So therefore, I did not consider meditation as a means of being truly present, and therefore maybe even more receptive to
and that's why it's extra important. It's extra important if you have any mental health issue, any trauma, PTSD, anything like that, and most of us actually do, to do it in these safe, tiny doses, so that it's because otherwise you end up triggered and then you're off to the races and it's not helpful. And then you think, oh, meditation is dangerous. But it's like desensitization is kind of how I think about it.
Nice.
Where we're normally running from emotions because even joy, we're pushing and pulling on it because we want more. We want, it's like craving. They talk about craving and aversion. So we want more of the good things and we want the bad things to stay away. So this is a way of holding the pleasant things with open hands and also holding the unpleasant things with open hands. But it's a skill. So you're not going to be able to just do it right away.
Yeah.
So we practice in these smaller doses. At least
I love it.
that's the way I do it. I've studied with a
Absolutely.
number of different teachers, and this is
Yeah,
is kind of the Nita spin on it,
I
on
love it.
meditation. That's what's
Absolutely
worked
love it.
for me.
Absolutely love it. Wow. Wow. How would you recommend someone who has been a couch potato? How would you recommend them to start?
Well, there are a lot of easy beginner training programs. The one that I failed at, but was also effective, is called Couch to 5K.
All right.
And it's a 9-week program
Yeah.
that took me well over 20 weeks to do. And I still can't run 3 miles in 30 minutes, which is like the ultimate goal. That's never going to happen. And that's okay. But just some kind of a program like that, so that you're doing intervals. Essentially, you're doing some walking and then a very short amount of running and then walking and then running, so that you're not just doing what you talked about, where it's like, okay, today I'm going to run, and we end up sprinting. This isn't sprinting. This is jogging, slow jogging. And the program actually says, 60 seconds of jogging. That's what got my attention. And then, so that's how you train. But for me, I ultimately had to have a goal, achiever. And for me, it turned out to be a 5K.
Right.
Long story how I ended up with that, because I never intended to be a public runner. But so some people, they need like a charity race for a cause that's, important to them.
Yep.
Somebody else might need to make a bet with a friend. I bet you can't run this 5K. Let's do it. You might need to train with somebody because you need the fellowship or accountability. You might need to hire a coach because you need that level of accountability. So a lot of it's about knowing who you are and finding the thing that fits your particular skill set, so that you're not trying to force yourself to do something that's not you and that just doesn't work for you. But for me, it was I actually saw a social media post of a high school friend, and I was on that sofa again. It had been a long time since I'd had a dark, dark place. I was 48, I think, or 49. I was about to turn 50. And she wrote, "Call me crazy, but this running is getting to be fun." And I had to read it twice, maybe 3 times before I thought, Kim, she's not athletic. We rode horses, but we were never in sports or anything like that. I was in the marching band. It wasn't, which is actually a physical activity, but it didn't compute at all. And so I just watched her for a while. So that's the other thing, is you never know who's watching. You never know what kind of impression you're making on people.
True.
And then I eventually got brave enough. I was miserable, and she didn't look miserable. She looked like she actually was having fun. So I was on medication. I stopped drinking many, many years before I was on medication. I was in therapy. I was meditating somewhat, not as much as I had been before or do now. I was doing my writing thing, but I didn't have the movement piece. And so I got brave and looked up her training plan. It's not her training plan, but the training plan she was using. And that's what it said, 60 seconds of jogging. It said a lot of other things too. But that was the day where it clicked for me, where I thought, I can try this. And so I leashed up the dog, and we went down into this ravine that's very hidden. It's like a floodplain. So it's real close to my house, but nobody could see me. Of course, this was like a Tuesday afternoon or something. Nobody's home in my neighborhood anyway, but I was a little paranoid and very concerned. And and that's how I started I had a digital timer, those kitchen timers, and took it down there for 60 seconds. And then, we did, again, intervals, 60 seconds of jogging. I forget, it was a minute of walk or 2 minutes of walking. And then we just did intervals for a while. And it was the first time I had done anything physical in a long, long time. And I had gotten to such a low point that I felt like I couldn't complete tasks I set out to do. I'd had a bunch of grief, a whole bunch of people die. I'd had a bunch of disappointments with writing. I just had gotten to a place where it was just really, really dark again. And so I had to try a different tool. And that's the other thing. Sometimes when people are running, if I'm cheering at the end, I'll yell, find another gear. And I always think that that's what I needed. I needed another tool. I needed a different gear because the things I was doing were maintaining, but I wasn't thriving. And then that put in motion things that I can't even, it just has been so, sometimes very difficult, but also amazing that I'm so grateful for my friend. And she had no idea. She was just posting her runs on social media. I'm not sure if she still even runs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's so true. So true, isn't it? But, oh, goodness. What an amazing, amazing journey and transformation you have undergone there. And it is a growth that keeps going, isn't it?
Yes.
Having said that, we both are on the right side of 50. And
the upside of the dirt.
That's
the
right.
Upside
That's
of the
right.
dirt, right?
How are your knees? That's right, exactly. How are your knees? How are your hips? How's your spine?
Better than ever. They're
Good.
actually much better when I'm running.
That's
and
exactly.
part of that, I'm really fussy about shoes. I'm fussy about my form. I'm fussy about running slowly most of the time.
Yeah.
I do some speed work, but not very often.
Yeah.
Run slower than you think you can stand to run, and your chances of injury are much less.
Absolutely agreed, 100%. And I think that is where we all need to be aware. As I said, I cannot tell you how many men in their 40s, 50s, 60s I treat as an anesthetist with injuries where they thought they're still 21. And it's just bullshit. We are like that. We men specifically are idiots. Okay. If you listen to me, you're an idiot. Okay. It is just, we are like that. It's that bloody mask, that bloody bravado that is just driving me nuts. And why? Because I recognize myself so much in that. God, I wore those masks for such a long time. I still do.
It's a cultural thing too. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know my brother was raised, don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. Stop crying.
Like
I mean, and he was the one that they gave all the physically harder tasks to. And I mean, it was just the way we're raised. I think there's a lot of change coming, and I applaud you in what you're doing with it, because men die from this. I mean, they really do. They die at their own hand, and they're actually much more likely to succeed at suicide than women are. Because of the methods they use. And it's very sad. It's horrible. And so keep on telling. I mean, I'm not sure that they're idiots, but that's how you're programmed.
Yes, we are. We are. The Y chromosome comes with the idiot. Okay, I'm sorry. There is something.
We testosterone poisoning. I know. It's
exactly. And I can say it because I've got that Y chromosome, and I've lived that macho culture. I defined myself by that. I was the ninja, the Rambo, the lethal weapon, all that kind of. Nowadays they call it toxic masculinity, and I'm not necessarily subscribing so much to that. Maybe misguided masculinity. Yes. Toxic is that you beat the shit out of people and don't give a damn. I was never doing that. But
what about the guy in the mirror? What were you doing to him?
Oh, please. He got a beating every single second I was awake. And I still do. There's still these voices that come out, coming back to imposter syndrome. See, it's the third time that we come back to that. See, seems to play a role in our lives. So it is so true. But again, nowadays we can laugh about it. Nowadays we see it as a quirky, misguided core belief. Maybe let's call it like that. I'm quite proud of that achievement, this emotional awareness, this awareness of that core belief that has driven me in the wrong direction and has led me to use alcohol and other coping mechanisms that maybe are not so nice and not so good for me. And that is where I've got the privilege to change. I've got the privilege of choice. I can right now say, no, actually, the past does not equal the future. And here I am. And here you are. You are going out there. You have gone through a lot of darkness intrinsically, plus the things that happened to you. Your writing career that didn't really flourish and blow out there. And yes, you're it. No, I mean, how many
Well, and
times
it's
were you
still, I mean,
rejected?
let's see. The first book that was actually published, I pitched 108 agents.
Oh, wow.
I want to say 180 publishers. It's been don't take agents,
Yeah.
and then entered like 30 contests before I got one book. And that doesn't count all the years before that I would try. I would pitch maybe 2 or 3 agents and then go forget it.
Yeah.
But
please, I mean, that's a story about J.K. Rowling. How many times was Harry Potter
Right.
rejected? And nowadays, these people are probably, are quite upset about the fact that they've rejected her.
Right.
So, J.K., if you actually ever want to come onto my show, I'm just putting that out there. You would be a very welcome guest because there's so much I can learn from your journey, from so many aspects of that. So, J.K., just if you're listening. But it is, I think the reality is that failure is part and parcel of our life. And failure as in not achieving the goal that you have set, that's actually normal. And we keep beating ourselves up for that. And that's so stupid. If you look at Hall of Famers in basketball or in other things, I think basketball, the best of the best of the best hit the hoop, I think 30 times, 30% or something like that. Is actually, if you look at the reality of it, they are failing most of the time. If you're traveling from here to your place, okay, to the States, of New Zealand to where are you? What's the next airport?
Oh, Columbus, Ohio, USA
go.
would be the closest airport here.
Cool. So that is about what, 12 hours, something like that, maybe more.
So probably.
How
Depending on if
many?
you have to go to,
Exactly.
where to go first,
So in reality, how many times do you think the pilot is correct on course?
Not very often because planes don't fly straight. I learned that about radar, and ships too. It's the same thing. They have, they're sort of like a swath that they try to stay within. But most of the time, the plane is going like this.
Exactly.
And then the radar says, and then they go, oh, better turn right. And then it goes,
exactly.
So I learned that, I don't know how many years ago. And I went, oh my gosh, that's because you think they just put it on that direct course and off we go.
Nope. And it's the same with our lives. Okay. It's the same thing there. These failures just mean that you have veered a bit to one side, and that's cool. So, perfect. So now you just recorrect your course and you're back on track. And it's the same here. But with that, you need to live intentional. You need to know, where do you want to go? If you're just floating, if you're just going somewhere, then you will never be on track. Well, you will always be on track to God knows where. But no,
if you actually want to get somewhere.
Well, that's right. That's right. So in order to do so, you actually need to do the work. And work as in beautiful work. You need to start dreaming. When was the last time you guys dreamt out there? What is your dream? Who do you want to become when you grow up? And then, I want to be rich. Okay, fair call. But rich is a very vague thing. So you need to turn that dream into a vision. So you now need to be very, very clear in your mind. What does rich actually mean? Or you want to be healthy. Well, I want to lose weight. Oh, that's fine. Okay. So how much do you weigh now? Where do you want to be? So you need to become clearer. So your dream becomes a vision. And now you start taking action steps into that direction. And suddenly your vision becomes a mission. Oh, that's beautiful. And that's where the miracles happen. That's where the transformation happens. That's where when you take action. And that was exactly when you got up and went into that ravine and went those first few steps. My God. And you look back and think, with hindsight, that was such a tiny thing. Yet at that time, this was such a monumental achievement. I actually get goosebumps now thinking of just that first step that you took. How that is gold. That is you breaking the mold. That is you taking ownership, leadership, And that's what life is all about. You are gorgeous, Nita. I mean, here you are, and you didn't stop there. Yes, you're doing the running, all that, but ultimately you're now giving back. You've written books. You actually share your journey. So tell us about your books. I mean, I see the books behind you. Come on, now it's show and tell.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I have, like you said, 3 books, and one of them has been translated into Korean, which is very fun. But the first book, which is the running and mental health journey from it was actually before the ravine to the first very long race I did. It's called Depression Hates a Moving Target, which was a motto. Apparently, a meditation teacher, Tara Brock, had said it years ago, and we tried to find it when we were using it. By we, I mean the publisher and I, because I just wanted to make sure nobody had trademarked it or anything like that. But it wasn't. I couldn't find it, and it was just something that I'd said for years, and again, probably heard it from her. And my friends and I would talk about it. Depression hates a moving target. Just get out of bed. Depression hates a moving target. Just do the laundry. These simple things. So that became the title of that first book, because that's what it's about. It's about moving and not getting cured of mental health issues, because I still have chronic depression. I'm still bipolar, still see a therapist, still take meds, but it's so much better, so much better. And then the second book is actually a writing journal. It's like a blank book that has author quotes, and they're organized by topic. So it's a journal for you to write in. It's called You Should Be Writing, because that imposter always thinks you should be writing. So it's kind of a play on that.
Oh, nice.
And that I co-wrote with my editor, Brenda Knight. And then there's another Mango author. Mango is my publisher. And there's another Mango author that wrote an introduction to it, Becca Anderson. And then the third book, the one that came out just in September of 2022, is called Make Every Move a Meditation. And that one is about how to move mindfully, how to, instead of sitting while you meditate, which is fantastic, and I recommend that highly, how to meditate while you're moving. So it can be anything from walking, even slow walking, to I've interviewed some people for the book, just little tiny interviews by them, where I have a guy he does Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he meditates anytime there's a stop. He brings himself back. One woman does it while she's sailing. Another guy I think he had to do calisthenics as physical therapy, things like that. So I have a friend who plays pickleball, who meditates while he's playing pickleball. So Zumba, any kind like that, because in sitting practice, it's only the posture that is sitting. The principles of meditation are the same, no matter what you're doing or not doing. And so that's what that book's about. It's just a book about how to meditate, but it happens to be that the posture is movement. And there's a lot of my experience running. There's a couple other examples of other sports I've done.
Brilliant.
So Brilliant. Those are my big 3. They're all available on my website, which I'm sure you'll put a link into.
I was about to say, what is your website? Is that your key?
Just my name. It's nitasweeney.com. So it's NITASWEENEY.com, nitasweeney.com. And that's the best place to find it. My newsletter, that's the other thing. If you want to stay in touch with me, I'm kind of less and less on social media now, just for my own mental health. So I have a newsletter, and I don't send it very often, but that's the best way for people to stay in touch with me.
Beautiful, beautiful. And guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because all her information is easily accessible down there. And whilst you're down there, please press the like and the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on the future episodes that are coming out. We are broadcasting the show every Tuesday and every Friday in the week, so 2 interviews a week of some beautiful people who make me grow, who allow me to explore new avenues that make me hopefully a new and improved version. So why not come along for the ride? This is an amazing time here. And life is too short. You might as well take every moment that you have got on this beautiful earth and well, sometimes it's not so beautiful, but you've got a choice to make it better by maybe doing something similar to Nita, by looking after yourself, by going for a stroll, which might turn into a run, which might turn, who knows? You might meet each other one day in Ohio, competing in a race. You don't know.
Never know.
And it's just, yeah. But if running is not your thing, well, when was the last time you danced? Why don't you start dancing every time you do a bit of work in the kitchen? Meal prep can suddenly be very, very cool. Maybe some activity there that really puts a smile on your face, because that's what is all about. Put a smile on our face, which then allows us to become happier and better us, I guess.
Yes.
Nita, you're an amazing woman. It's beautiful to hear how you have transformed, the new techniques you have developed on this journey, on this ongoing journey, where you are writing to help others, where you're running to help others. You've got a YouTube channel. I saw that. You have, yes, I want to see you
Nothing
running.
like yours, but thank you. That is,
Oh, yeah,
that is there.
well, exactly. So you're going out there. You want to make this world a better place. And it is because of people like you that I still think there's hope for this world. And if we all do a little bit, just a little bit, could you all imagine that this world will change? I do. I strongly do. But in order to do so, we all need to look after ourselves. And that's my big advice to you guys. Look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.